We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast, and we've got a special guest that we had on one time before. His name is John. He is a younger man, uh, millennial, I think you are, right?
Gen Z.
Gen Z. Oh my goodness, he could be my grandkid probably. Anyway, he is. And what state are you in again? You're in Illinois, right?
Yeah. Yep. Right smack in the middle.
And you are a farmer as well,
That's
which
correct.
which makes it very opportune for you to be here today with some of the things going on with farmers. But tell me how things have been going since we last talked with you and your young life and what your intentions are with your future.
Well, not a whole lot's really changed. I mean, I'm still working on the farm every day and just I was kind of nervous to see what was going to happen before he was inaugurated, but now that we're into it, I mean, it's almost less stressful not having the what's going to happen kind of thing hanging over your head. But now that we're getting into it, I mean, there's some things that are concerning, of course, and then there's other things that are kind of, I guess, you kind of see
Stupid.
who they really are and how they operate.
I think anticipation is the toughest thing for most people. People are most fearful of the unknown, and now that it's hit, I told somebody the other day. I said it's almost comforting. We were expecting the worst. We got the worst, but now we're in it. And now we just have to deal with it. We don't have to anticipate it. We don't have to worry about it. We're in the middle of it. We're in the middle of a war. Were you surprised at all about how things have gone down in the first few weeks of the presidency?
Not really. I mean, I expected the chaos because that's one of the things that they did in the first term, and
Right.
I mean that's flood. Like Steve Bannon had an interview on TV several years ago, and in that interview he said that their tactic this time is going to be to flood the zone. He said, and just put so much crap out there in the circle, and the media, he said, will only latch on to one or two things and not latch on to the stuff that they're doing in the background. So if they just put so much stuff out there, create so much chaos, people aren't going to know what to pay attention to.
It's one thing to create chaos and create problems, but anytime you do something, there should be an end game as to something you can gain from whatever it is you're doing. And for the life of me, it just seems like some flailing maniacs just doing whatever they can to tear down things. It's like a drug-addled rock star ripping up a hotel room. There's no rhyme or reason to it. They just fucking do it because they feel like it. That's what it seems like.
Exactly. And I saw something yesterday or day before that seems pretty accurate. He said that Project 2025 is a temper tantrum on paper. That's all it
Pretty
is.
much.
These people see a government or a system that has been holding them accountable, and of course, people like that, they don't want to be held accountable. So this first chance at power they get, they just do everything they can, swing the sledgehammer around, and fucking destroy everything. But they don't think about how they're going to rebuild it. I mean, Sam Rayburn had a quote. He was FDR's Speaker of the House, and he said, "Any jackass can kick down a barn, but it takes a good carpenter to rebuild it." These people are not good carpenters.
Donald Trump has never been a builder, in spite of the fact his title might have been builder or developer at one point. All he does is destroy everything he touches. And again, I'm not certain what his end game is and what he hopes to do other than to show he's powerful. And I think that's a lot to do with it. Donald Trump is such a simple-minded person and so narcissistic that everything that he does is intended to enhance his image and nothing about really accomplishing anything. We hear it all the time, like when he was talking about Panama, and he sent Marco Rubio down there, and Marco Rubio comes back and says, "Well, Panama has agreed to not charge any of the government ships that go through the Panama Canal." Yay, big win for Donald Trump. But then, of course, Panama comes out and says, "Yeah, that's not true." Donald Trump does this all the time. He lies about big wins, and then he always gets exposed. I don't understand the point.
Yeah, I don't know. It's confusing. Um, the only thing is that with his supporters, they're only getting half the story. So they get the lie, but they don't get that the lie is exposed. We get both. So we have a full understanding of what's going on, but the supporters don't.
Ultimately, they're going to get burned.
Oh
And
yeah,
then what do they do? Do they then realize that these people lied to them, or then do they just try to blame it on somebody else?
that's that's what's so worrying about this. I mean, I know that eventually they're going to get burned, but we're going to get burned right along with them.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. We've heard about Elon Musk uh, breaking into these departments and messing with the computer systems. We know they attempted to shut down U.S. aid. USAID actually is what it's called, and it's about sending aid to foreign countries, hungry people, sick people, that sort of thing. And they wanted to shut it down because they want America first, and they see this as a waste. Um, but all these evil geniuses don't seem to look out beyond the end of their nose, because when it comes down to it, it has I won't say worse effect, but an effect on this country too. Because all these countries that are buying food with our money are buying them from American farmers. In 2020, U.S. aid spent $2.1 billion in the United States with American farmers. Now, they've done what they've done and they've slowed it down or stopped it. So, right now, there's about $340 million worth of crops sitting in boats or in containers rotting because of what Elon Musk has done. I know a lot of farmers voted for Donald Trump, and I know in your area, you know a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump. How are they feeling now that he's already taken a bite out of their ass? Or do
I
they
don't think they
realize,
I don't think they even know. A lot of them.
really?
Yeah,
How do you
I don't think
not
they
know?
know.
I mean, how do you not look into this if this is your business?
I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't. I think they see this. The like I had this conversation the other day with somebody. They were talking about, oh, they're digging up all this. Can you believe all the waste they're digging up? Can you believe all the money laundering they're exposing and all that? And I'm like, no, it's not real. It's just where are you hearing all this?
That's the
You
amazing
know,
thing. I keep hearing people talking about finding all the waste, and I haven't heard one bit of evidence that they found anything at all. This is just Donald Trump saying, "Oh, we found all kinds of waste." And this is the amazing thing to me about Trump bucks. Even if you're dumb, even if you're in the cult, you have to realize that Donald Trump is a pathological liar. And you have the ignorance to believe a pathological liar. So he tells you it's good, and then that means it's good, but you still get fucked in the end. I don't get the mentality or lack thereof.
I don't understand it either. And there's three or four different, 3 or 4 farmers that I know that I'm pretty good friends with, and we're all like-minded on this. We're all on the same page politically, but none of us can figure out the mentality behind it. It for being farmers. I mean, we're like very logical, very straightforward, discerning people, and they just can't see it. It's amazing to me.
People that voted for Donald Trump that you know of have gotten to witness what's going on in this first 3 weeks. How do you think they're feeling about the way things are going?
Uh, with Elon, they're not. I don't think they're concerned at all. I
Okay.
think there's a couple things maybe that like releasing the violent J6ers. I think there were kind of some people going, "Oh, that's not so cool." But you know, I mean,
I mean, do you think some of these Trump fans, these Trump voters, have any second thoughts at all, or they're just like, well, he just didn't start.
not the ones that I know online. I mean, I'm seeing supposedly quite a few, but I mean, I don't know how much of that I can trust really. But the thing is, it really hasn't hit hard yet, the economic stuff, and until it does, I don't think they're going to come to that realization.
What do you think will happen when they get hit hard? How do you think they'll feel about it then? Will they place the blame where it belongs, or will they make up some bullshit that doesn't make any sense?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think they're just probably going to repeat what Fox News tells them,
You know?
which is unfortunate, but I have no idea.
Well, the thing I found interesting when I heard from farmers that were put in a bad situation by Donald Trump in the first term, and they were still going to vote for him in 2024. They said, yeah, but he made us whole. He bailed them out to the tune of $58 billion. These people have to understand something. Donald Trump is very transactional. He bailed them out because he needed their votes. He doesn't
Exactly.
need their votes anymore. He doesn't need their votes. He doesn't need anything from them anymore. He doesn't even care if they're fucking mad. Are they prepared not to get bailed out this time? Because I'd be surprised if they do.
I doubt it. I don't know. It depends on what happens, because uh, last time they put pretty steep tariffs on China and they quit buying our grain. Now they're doing the same thing and they're shutting down U.S. aid. So I don't know what's going to come of it, but as far as I know, China is still buying our grain, but I don't know. I'm not really up on all that.
I understand it. Um, the tariffs that China is putting in effect don't take effect until next week, I think. They
Mm.
won't actually happen until next week. The tariffs we have on China are already in effect. Um, and for the life of me, I'm not seeing the money pour in. Tell me if I'm an asshole. If I see farmers out there that voted Donald Trump first time, get their ass burned, but get bailed out, and then they vote for him again, and if they get their ass burned and don't get bailed out, I literally have no sympathy for them. In fact, I rather enjoy that they're suffering because apparently that's what it takes to get people to fucking be clear in their minds.
Yeah, I couldn't blame you. I mean, for me, being in the middle of it, watching people
Right.
around me suffer, it's a different story,
Yeah, no, I get
but
that.
I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks, yeah, you get what's coming, but it's just hard to watch it happen.
It is hard to watch. And I always tell people, how can I feel sympathetic if I spent 4 years trying to tell you what to watch out for? And instead you decided to believe the bullshit out of Jesse Waters' mouth. I can only do so much. Any of us can only do so much. And if that's what it takes for you to learn, that wouldn't be my choice. That wouldn't be the last resort I would go to. But you force the issue. Now you're a young man in farming. You're just kind of starting your career.
Mhm.
What kind of mindset does that put you in now? I mean, you've got to look forward to the future, and farming has been part of that. Are you feeling confident about the future in farming, or are you worried?
Well, the need for ag is never going away. So,
Right.
it's just in the short term, it means bad markets. The grain market's not going to be great. And so my dad and I just went to breakfast this morning, and I told him, I said, it's probably a good thing I didn't start my own farm this year. But you know, I mean, we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, you never know until it happens, obviously. But for this year, given everything that he's trying to do, I'm not terribly disappointed that I haven't started my own farm yet.
Good choice. How old are you again? You're in your
I'm 20,
20s,
23.
23, and you're just starting out. Now, here's a difference in perspective. You're 23 years old, and you think, at worst case, Donald Trump will be out of here in 4 years. 4 years. I got plenty of time. 4 years. I'm 65. When he's done, I'll be 69. I have a little more urgency about what's going on, not so much for my sake, but for my kids and my grandkids. Um, is that how you're feeling about this? Well, he'll fuck it up for a while, but I got plenty of time and we'll come out the other side.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, like I say, I'm only in my 20s. I've got more time on my hands, but at the same time, I want this shit over with as fast as anybody does. you know, and for the life of me, I can't see how he makes it the full 4 years. But then even if he doesn't, we got JD, which we don't
JD
know
is
how
a,
that's going to work out.
JD is a much different situation, though. Everybody says to me, well, JD's just as bad as Donald Trump. And that's just not the case because Donald Trump is kind of a once in a generation dictator. For whatever reason, he garners a lot of support from dumbass people. JD Vance is much weaker than he is. And unlike Donald Trump, JD Vance is controllable. And the Republicans have to worry about getting reelected in 26 and 28. If Donald Trump keeled over, choking on a Big Mac, and JD took over, he'd probably get chewed up and spit out by members of Congress, big corporations, and those sorts of things. You got to remember, he doesn't really have any experience doing this. He was a senator for 2 years, and he didn't fucking show up most of the time. As much as his ideology is bad, um, I think he's a far weaker candidate or a far weaker president should he ever get to that case. And I always look at it like this: let's get rid of the big problem first, and then we'll deal with the next problem. And that's how I look at it with Donald Trump. Get rid of Donald Trump, get him out of there, and then we'll deal with JD Vance. And I think he'll be an easier person to deal with and control.
I I don't disagree with that. And people say, are kind of freaked out about him because, well, he wrote part of Project 2025. I'm like, yeah, he wrote the forward for it, okay? that's that's not he didn't write the meat of the project, you know.
He's the least of our problems when it comes to Project 2025. Russell Vought, the guy that was just confirmed for the Office of Management and Budget, is one of the main authors of Project 2025. And this is a fucking superhero villain looking motherfucker that needs to be straightened out. But of course, our Congress okayed it. It's just unbelievable to me. This is what Republicans have to understand. Project 2025 comes out. Everybody is appalled by it, even Republicans. Donald Trump says, I have nothing to do with it. I don't know anybody there. In fact, some of the shit they're talking about is crazy. But Donald Trump's team from his first term were all working with Project 2025. His name was in the document 300 plus times. He said, I had nothing to do with it. Republicans believed him. Democrats did not believe him. So now he comes in, he hires one of the main authors of Project 2025 as the OMB director and all these other Project 2025 people. You have to wonder if Republicans truly hated Project 2025, at least some of them, don't they feel like they've been hoodwinked in this situation? Because they certainly were.
I think so. And from what I've heard, um, behind closed doors, Republicans' tones are very different from in front of the cameras. I've heard from a number of places and Democratic Congress people in interviews saying, they were asked like, what do the Republicans think? And a lot of them sounds like a lot of them are very concerned about where things are going, but they don't feel they're afraid to stand up to him. And one guy even said, one guy was asked, why don't you just stand up to him and say no? And the guy's response was, how did that work out for Adam Kinzinger? And so
Remember that quote.
part of what my thinking is, well, if that's what's going on, they know it's wrong, but they're scared to stand up because they don't think anybody will have their back on it. As little as I like supporting those people because how spineless they are, I feel like we ought to just call them and tell them, look, if you do the right thing, we'll have your back on that. I mean, I agree with you. I do not agree with you politically on most anything except the validity of the Constitution. And if you do your job and stand up for the Constitution, I'll have your back on that.
I don't even know if that would work. That's the most troubling thing. We look up to people in Congress. We elect them. We pay them good money. We trust that they're going to do our bidding and to protect the Constitution. And when you get some crazy ass motherfucker like Donald Trump in there, they all say, "Oh, I'd like to do the right thing, but I'm afraid." Remember, remember when Donald Trump said, "I prefer my war heroes not to get caught. I prefer my elected officials not to be pussy ass bitches. That's just my preference. I'm sorry if that's offensive to somebody, but here's the thing: it's over and above them being afraid. It's why they're afraid. They're afraid of losing their position or power or money. So they're willing to protect their own self enrichment over something that could be destroying the country. These people are more concerned about themselves than this country. And that's apparent when somebody says, "Well, I'm too scared to talk." You
Yeah,
should stand up and talk and take the whooping. They may look at Adam Kinzinger as a fool for doing what he did. I say he's one of the very few heroes in Washington D.C. at this point. Same with Liz Cheney. I don't believe in anything that they would vote for, but at least they had one thing that seems to be sorely missing in Washington D.C. A shred of integrity. We don't see it on the Republican side at all, and we don't see it much on the Democratic side either.
exactly. Yeah, and it would seem to me that if they stood up for us and just put their foot down and said no on all this stuff, wouldn't they have a better chance of keeping their job after all this stuff hits the fan and people really start hurting? Wouldn't it
I
stand to
would
reason
think
that
so.
their constituents wouldn't vote for somebody who just went along with it?
I would think that would be the case, but they're very short-sighted and they're very cowardly. Um, the thing is, you know what's going to happen as soon as there's a chink in the armor, as soon as something goes south on Donald Trump and he gets the wrong kind of publicity, then you're going to see all these brave motherfuckers monkey piling on top of him. See, yeah, I always thought that. I always thought that. That's uh, how little integrity these motherfuckers have.
Hmm. It's frustrating for sure.
It is absolutely frustrating. I wonder sometimes, people look at the Republican Party thinking Donald Trump destroyed it. Um, I don't trust anybody in the Republican Party, nobody, because even if they don't agree with what Donald Trump says, they've been accessories after the fact or complicit because he's committing crimes as we speak. It's not like he said, "I'm going to I keep my nose clean this time around." He's not doing that at all. He's doing the opposite. But a lot of people are frustrated with the Democrats too because they're saying, "Well, you're not doing anything." And what they can do, uh, I don't know. But you would just presume, as a party is trying to destroy the country, the opposing party would be pretty fervent about their pushback. And how do you feel about the Democrats at this point? Are you disappointed in them, or do you think they're doing the only things they can do?
I think being the minority party in both chambers, I don't think there's a whole lot they can do right now. But I think for the most part, they're playing their cards pretty close to the chest, which is I think what they should be doing. Because for what a couple things about that is the Republicans and MAGA have told everybody everywhere what they're going to do at every step, so we can always counter it in some way. If the Democrats want to be able to surprise them and pull moves that they didn't see coming, they can't reveal everything they're going to do. And to us, the supporters, it might be frustrating, but I think that's pretty wise. And also, another thing that they could be doing, and I suspect this is more the case than anything, I think they're leaving Donald Trump enough rope to hang himself with.
That's a good point. I become frustrated. You tell people and they still vote for him. He does these egregious things and they just let him go. I get frustrated at some point, and if I'm in a normal situation and there's just no way out of it, sometimes I resolve myself to standing back and let the fucker burn. And people will see that as insensitive. Well, you got to do something. Well, if there's nothing you can do, what's the best choice? And I think a lot of people are thinking that's what the Democrats are doing. Donald Trump is not the brightest man. The people around him are proving not to be that bright. They're going to do these crazy things, and it's all going to be bad in the end for them. So why not just step back and let them burn it down? I, in my frustration, I sometimes think, all right, show me how fucking good you are. And when you burn down, we're kicking your ass out of here.
Exactly. And I mean, like Jamie Raskin said the other day, he was asked if they're going to impeach. He said, "Find me two Republicans, and I'll get to work right now." So all it takes in the House of Representatives right now is two Republicans to say, "I've had enough," and then word has it there's enough votes in the Senate to convict them too.
It would be interesting if that were to occur. Um, I've often said, well, there's articles of impeachment already been presented by Al Green, the Democratic representative. And I've said all along that particular effort probably isn't going to go anywhere because things haven't gotten bad enough for the Republicans as yet. They're not, Mike Johnson isn't even going to bring it to the floor. So then it's all a moot point at that stage. Uh, I personally think he could get impeached at some point, but it's going to have to be something initiated by the Republicans. What they would probably do is use that as leverage at first, saying, you better fucking shape up or we're going to impeach you. And of course, Donald Trump will push back at that. Can't, he won't back down. He'll double down and triple down. And then the Republicans, if they feel like he's damaging their party too much, which he already has, but apparently they still have the stomach for it, then they will push back and impeach him. And then it will be easy if to get two Republicans and enough senators.
Sure. Yeah. And, you know, again, it comes down to just like, from what I hear, they're kind of fed up with him. So are they kind of just standing back and doing the same thing and just letting him letting all these things pile up before
But
they move?
there will come a point where the Republicans have had enough and they just won't care. At this point, they're still afraid. I don't know really what they're afraid of, but they're still afraid. But when that point comes, when they've had enough, then it's just going to um, T-bone Donald Trump. He won't see it coming, and it will be devastating. The thing about it is I thought that would come long ago. I really thought after the 2020 election, people would be rid of him because he's such a pain in the ass.
Hmm.
But God damn it, the Republicans held on tight to that dumb motherfucker. They got what they wanted. They got power in the House and the Senate. But you got to be careful what you're asking for because you also got Donald Trump as president of the United States, and he's making you motherfuckers look stupid.
Exactly. I thought they would have dumped him a long time ago, honestly. And along with Mike Johnson, I'm surprised Johnson's still there.
You were talking before we came on, and we talked about it on the podcast, and other people on TikTok that talked about it, is those two special elections in Florida. And people are kind of hot on that because they are Republicans. These were people plucked out of the House by Donald Trump to be in his cabinet, which was a stupid fucking move. No intelligent Republican would have ever done that. But so now there are two special elections. And as Eric has so often said, special elections are weird because there is no name recognition. If they're upset with Republicans, it could go the other way. And if the Democrats won both those seats, we'd essentially be in a tie. And if they won the one in New York, they'd be ahead. And then Mike Johnson would be out. Hakeem Jeffries would be the Speaker of the House. How are you feeling about those down there? They should be Republican elections, but these are different days.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's entirely possible. I really do. Especially when you look at the special election in Iowa for the 35th district for the state senate.
Right.
Um, that was a district that Donald Trump carried in 2024 by 21 points, and it swung all the way to the left, and a Democrat took that seat by over 4%. So when
Can you
you see
imagine?
something like that, it's not beyond the realm of possibility at all, especially if, as we were talking about earlier, especially if there are Republicans that are having some buyer's remorse right now.
Well, then you throw in the fact that you're in Florida, and a lot of bad shit's going on in Florida. People can't get insurance. There's all kinds of problems with hurricanes, and Donald Trump wants to get rid of FEMA. Um, Ron DeSantis has been a complete shit show as a governor. There might be some people that are ready for a change. And I think the Democrats are going to pour a lot of money into it as well. So I think there's a distinct possibility that could go Democrat.
Yeah, I I I think it's entirely possible. I mean, we'll see what happens, of course. Um, but I know there are several creators on TikTok that are really leaning into this, Hawk being one of them. Um, but like I brought up on your live the other night, you know, if if you have 400,000 followers on TikTok and everybody donates $5, that's $2 million.
It's a lot of money. And like I was saying in that live too, there's other things that creators can do, like myself, in addition to helping them collect money. Is by giving them exposure, raising their profile a little bit. Um, these people that'll be running in these races, nobody outside of Florida has probably ever heard from them. That's one thing about the internet, particularly TikTok. You can take somebody who nobody knows and turn them into a nationwide or worldwide superstar, a fan favorite. I'll give you an example. Um, the the old man Doug, who's having a party on the 15th. I don't know if you've seen that on TikTok, but this old man came and invited some millennial woman to a party. It said, I'm having a winter party, and it goes from 4 till the cops come. And people thought he was adorable. And now you go on TikTok, it's everywhere. We got people sending them stuff. So my point is, if you get somebody who's kind of compelling or articulate or sends a good message, it isn't hard to build a platform for them pretty quickly.
Oh,
And if
sure.
we can help to do that, that will certainly help them uh, in their elections coming up. Was it March 1 or April 1? Actually, it is.
April
Uh,
1st.
we're not, yeah, we're not that far away. We got a short time to do it, um, but I think an excellent chance of beating out the Republicans. There'll be more money, more exposure, and a lot of people behind them. We know that social media does have some impact on elections, so if we can use it to our benefit, all the better.
Well, and the thing to remember about special elections is turnout is tends to be very low.
Right.
So they really don't get a whole lot of attention. And because of that, you can get some really wacky results.
Right.
So it's really not out of the realm of possibility at all that these two seats could in fact flip. And if they did flip, that I mean that would just send the Trump train to a screeching halt because they would have to elect a new speaker, and with a tied house, they're almost definitely not going to get a new speaker until so that would be like what, a month, maybe even 2 months without a House majority, depending on when that the New York election is.
I think I was thinking about if you're down in Florida and it's for the special election, Republicans versus the Democrats, and we got the support for the Democrats. And because the turnout's so low, we might want to create a distraction for the Republicans. So I was thinking maybe uh, promote the biggest tractor pull fucking ever and a cousin beauty contest. That should distract them completely and get them to avoid voting. You don't want to miss that fucking tractor pull for fuck's sake.
Oh, of course not. I love a good tractor pull.
I would imagine you do, but you're a farmer.
Yeah, I'm not much for cousin beauty contests, unfortunately, or fortunately. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I, I was,
that'd be a pretty good one.
in regards to cousins, I was going to say something a little less delicate, but then I realized you're younger than my kid. I should kind of watch it. But and that's the question now. When say the Democrats do win those two seats and it's tied essentially, and we don't know who the Speaker of the House is, all that essentially does is shut down, nullify the House of Representatives. And unfortunately, that's the best we can hope for at this point, that nothing happens in the House of Representatives. Nothing crazy, but in addition, nothing good's going to happen either.
Isn't that scary? That
It is.
we're just we're at the point where it's almost better to have no Congress at all. Well, and the thing about it too is, if they don't have a speaker, they can't move any legislation.
Right.
And most of Project 2025 will have to either be done by a constitutional amendment or by legislation. Now, what the events of recent have told me, with all these executive orders that are ordering things that can't be done through EOs, that tells me that they are not confident that they can move legislation that is this extreme.
The party is so divided, they couldn't pass anything on their own typically. Um, Democrats, I think at this stage, have finally said, we're not helping you unless we get something. And I like the idea that the Democrats are playing a little more hardball because they've been just pussies up to this point. They've caved in. We've got Democrats voting for these nominees, which I find extremely frustrating. And I personally think anybody who votes, any Democrat that votes for a Donald Trump nominee, any of them, because they're all unqualified and dangerous to this country, I think they all should be primary if they show their colors to be bending to Donald Trump.
Very definitely. It's extremely frustrating. And the one senator that really irritates me right now is John Fetterman, because when he started out, oh my God, when he started out, he was fantastic. And then something happened, and man, he's just a different guy now.
What's weird about him is he got into office, seemed like he couldn't handle it. So he took time off because he was struggling with depression. And
Mm,
from that point, uh, after coming back, he seemed to be going more the other way. I mean, he isn't what the people voted.
yeah,
Some people will feel sorry for him because he suffers with depression. Fuck him. I hope he is depressed. And that's not to speak negatively about anybody else that deals with depression. But if there's a motherfucker that deserves a little pain, it's John Fetterman because he's helping Donald Trump and the Republicans inflict pain on a lot of fucking people.
yeah, it's it's very frustrating.
I was talking to TJ yesterday, and TJ lives in Pennsylvania. He's met and kind of knows John Fetterman, and he's made some calls to them to his office a couple of times. Of course, voicemail's not working for some reason, but he's very annoyed by this. And I think there's a lot of Pennsylvanians that aren't happy with Fetterman. And I would be surprised if he gets another. He'll probably get primary in the next election.
Really, I was going to ask what is he seeing from Pennsylvania with regards to Fetterman?
Yeah, he thinks there's a lot of people. Uh, TJ is involved in the unions, and I think a lot of unions who may have voted for Donald Trump are feeling otherwise now to see what's happening.
Yeah,
And I think they see Fetterman as kind of a hurdle in their efforts too, in spite of the fact that they thought he would be a positive for them.
yeah, and he started out, didn't he start out really pro labor and everything? Like when he ran, I mean, isn't that kind of what he
Motherfucker,
ran on?
he comes in a cutoff sweatshirt and shorts. He's got to be labor,
Yeah,
but for whatever reason, he's either fearful or just a liar. And the way he's coming at this is really strange. And I think he'll pay the price ultimately. Did you happen to see your governor trolling Donald Trump? Did you
I
see
did.
that?
I love my governor.
Yeah.
That
Here's
was
the thing.
fantastic.
Pritzker is your governor, and he's a legitimate billionaire, meaning he actually worked for money. He wasn't
Correct.
handed money like Donald Trump. Um, but he was making fun of Donald Trump with regards to his interest in renaming the Gulf of Mexico and attaching Greenland. And Katie Pritzker comes out and he announced just perfectly straight face. I love that he did this. I love that he's so confident that he can pull this off without pissing somebody off. And even if he does piss somebody off, he doesn't care. He explained to people that henceforth they were going to change the name of Lake Michigan to Lake Illinois, which I think is a good move. And then he had hopes of annexing Green Bay, Wisconsin. And he
just
did it with a
because he
straight
wanted it.
face. Yeah, just because he wanted it. And so he's standing up there making fun of Donald Trump. And I like that. I like that vibe because Donald Trump is a narcissist. And the best way, the quickest way you can get to him is by making fun of him, making him look like a fool. That drives him nuttier than anything else you can do. And I like the fact that JD Pritzker has more money than he does, more brains than he does, and he's not afraid to shove it in his face.
Oh yeah, I JB has been a really good governor, and he's coming at it the right way. You just got to push his buttons and make him react. That's all you
Yeah,
got to do.
absolutely, absolutely. Uh, he's Donald Trump is a broken guy, and he's not hard to break down if you look at it. I wish more media outlets would do that because it's not hard to do, but apparently they're fearful. Speaking of Donald Trump being embarrassed, there was something that happened yesterday. Uh, we saw Time come out. Time magazine made Donald Trump their man of the year. That pissed a lot of people off. What people fail to understand is that being man or person of the year on Time isn't always a good thing. I mean, Hitler was man of the year one time for Time back in the 30s. But
Stalin too.
what's that?
Joseph Stalin was too, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah, I think he was. I think there has been a number of negative people that have been the person of the year. But something came out the other day, a picture, and this is a definite direct dig on Donald Trump, knowing that he's emotionally broken, weak, and insecure. The picture was of Elon Musk in a suit, sitting at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, suggesting that Elon's the one running the show. And I know Donald Trump lost his shit on that, but he's sitting in a press conference with the premier of Japan, and somebody asked him about that picture. And he said, I don't have anything to say about it. And I think he thought he got past it, but then the interpreter reiterated it for the Japanese premier. And you could see at that moment, that motherfucker was embarrassed. You don't need to tell this to some other leader that I'm being fucking trolled on one of the best known magazines in history. So, and then all he could say, you tried to come up with something clever. He said, "Is Time still in business?" But you could see on his face, he had this most sour look on his face. He was raging about that, and I can't imagine what happened after that event because I'm sure he lost his shit.
Oh man, that was so satisfying. And the whole time, the Japanese premier is just sitting there with a shit-eating grin on his face.
Yeah,
was that was so perfect. And the way that the reporter asked the question was fantastic too. Did you see the picture of Elon Musk sitting behind your Resolute desk?
it's almost like saying, "Donnie, you're a cuck. What do you have to say about that?" I would love to be in the press corps and ask some of those hard questions because he
Oh
would be
man.
so pissed off. And I have no aversion to pissing people off, so it would be fun. Um, let's talk about Elon a little bit. I was talking about dealing with your biggest problem and then move on to the next things. And Donald Trump is a big problem, of course, in the things he's doing. I personally think that Elon Musk is our more imminent problem. The fact that
Yeah.
Donald Trump allows him to run roughshod. And I think that Elon is more vulnerable. He too is a malignant narcissist, so he's emotionally broken. He isn't hard to tear down if you make fun of him or make light of him. I mean, we know that somebody suggesting he's a shitty parent bugs him enough to create a fake account on Twitter that says he's basically a good parent. That's how fucking weak he is.
Well, didn't
Um,
Trump do the same thing?
well, Trump used to
And
call people with another name. I remember he was calling Forbes back in the day, trying somebody named John Carpenter was calling on behalf of Donald Trump and why he should be in the Forbes top 100 richest people, even though he wasn't. But Elon is getting hit financially. Tesla's sales are dropping like a fucking rock all around the world. We know that Twitter went from 44 billion down to what, like 8 now. So this guy isn't a business mastermind. He's ruining himself, his brand, and everything. If he would have just stayed, kept it low, he would have been fine. Oh, he's really smart. Oh, he's really rich. He's really successful. The moment he tied into Donald Trump, his stock started to fade. And it will totally be ruined because everybody that's tied to Donald Trump ends up walking away with fucking nothing. Donald
yeah,
Trump destroys shit. But don't you think that we should, as social media or the media themselves, we should be going after Elon Musk, exposing all his problems and issues, and he has many, and just embarrassing him at every turn to finally try to cancel this fuck?
oh, definitely. I think we need to, like, with the President Musk stuff, that it worked before he was president, and we need to keep doing that again. And it's like the Time Magazine thing, you know, just little jabs. I mean, Donald Trump hated that. I mean, that is as stupid and childish as it is. It definitely bothered him. And if Musk gets more media attention and more blowback than Trump does, that little bromance they got ain't gonna last too long. And the faster we can get Musk out of the picture, the better.
But here's the troubling thing if I'm Elon Musk. If that bromance makes up or breaks up, it's not going to be a clean breakup because you
Oh
got
no.
two malignant narcissists who have to be right. It's not going to be pleasant. And what Elon Musk is doing right now is patently illegal. He has no immunity. He has nothing. And if Donald Trump gets mad enough at him, in spite of supporting him like he does, Donald Trump could go after him. He owns the fucking DOJ. He could say, Pam Bondi, crucify this motherfucker. He did all this stuff. He got caught. I knew about it, but he got caught. So let's put all the blame on him. Let's
Yeah,
crucify this motherfucker. And that could happen.
I think it's very possible that it might. I mean, I kind of get the idea that Trump never really liked Musk all that much, but we can only imagine there's 400 billion reasons why he's kept him around, and be until
But I
there's
think
400 billion reasons not to keep him around. I he'll probably just keep dealing with it until it gets to be too much. And
the thing about it is whenever I think of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and I wonder how they're connected, it's very easy. Elon Musk has $400 billion that Donald Trump covets, and Donald Trump has the power that Elon covets. So they're a match made in heaven in that regard, other than their own personalities. When I think of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, it reminds me of an old classic rock song that you wouldn't remember because you're too young, but it was big in my day. And it was Bob Seger. The song was called Night Moves.
good one.
And the line, yeah, it's a great song. And the line goes, she was using me, I was using her, but we didn't care because we were getting our share. And that's
Yeah,
exactly what's going on here. They don't probably like each other. They both see some benefit from being connected to the other up until the time they don't, and they break up and they disagree. And here's what we know about Donald Trump: everybody he's connected to, he ends up breaking up with at some point because Donald Trump is a fucking insufferable piece of shit. You throw in the fact that so is Elon Musk. How long can this go?
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm kind of wondering about. Is you know, I'm surprised it took this long, honestly. But I mean, Donald Trump loves money, and and Elon just keeps waving that check in front of his head, and he just keeps following him. And then, of course, Musk knows that Donald Trump's an idiot, and so he knows that. you know, he can get with by flaunting his money in front of his face. Musk knows that he can get Donald Trump to do whatever he wants him to do, and of course, like Ed said the other day, Donald Trump is a useful idiot.
Let's be honest about Elon Musk too. I question his intellectual capacity. I mean, he never really invented anything. He bought into PayPal, he bought into Tesla, he bought into SpaceX. He didn't really do anything. He just had the money to attach his name to it. And the things he's doing now, he's not really looking forward about the possible problems he might be in by just running off and doing whatever the fuck he wants. There'll come a time, whether it be Donald Trump or after Donald Trump's gone, where people go, this guy compromised a lot of our data. We were so worried about TikTok, and this South African comes into the country and does it blatantly. How are you Republicans not upset about that if you're so upset about TikTok? And eventually it's going to come back to haunt him. I suspect he probably won't go to jail because he can keep himself out of it, a la Donald Trump, by delaying and doing all that stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets his ass deported ultimately.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the gun's definitely loaded. All they got to do is pull the trigger on him, and he's not gonna face consequences while Donald Trump is president. He's just not. But in 2029, I wouldn't be surprised to see the hammer come down on him and come down real hard. And on all those little freaking incels kids he's got helping him too.
Yeah, that's the thing that troubles me. I heard one member of Congress was talking about those guys. Well, they're highly trained professionals. They're fucking 19 to 25, and one of them has an online name named Big Balls. I don't get a professional vibe off these fucking clowns.
No, I mean when I pictured, not that I did much, but when I pictured the United States crumbling, it was not at the hands of someone named Big Balls. I mean, for Christ's sake, make it some big scary army or something. Good grief.
Especially a guy named Big Balls being led by two guys that have no balls.
Exactly.
So that just seems very weird.
Yeah.
Do you think Elon is using these young kids as like sacrificial lambs, knowing that there's going to be problems, and when they come to him and say, "Well, this is illegal," he'll say, "I didn't do it. These guys did. I had no idea that they did it." I feel like they're being made to be scapegoats.
Oh, definitely. They'll be thrown under the bus, lickety split when the hammer comes down.
We had the one that resigned because they went through his social media and found that he did some pretty racist shit. But then JD Vance comes back and said they should rehire him. That he shouldn't, a kid shouldn't lose his whole life for some stupid things on social media. And he said some of the things I don't agree with. I'd like to ask JD Vance, which of the racist things he said do you agree with? If only some of them you don't agree.
Yeah.
And and then secondly, the silly social media, and it shouldn't ruin people's lives. You got Donald Trump's entire communication with this country is through social media. You've got the complaints and the hearings and the investigations about what other people have done on social media. But your guys, that's no big deal. It's just kids. I don't care if they're just kids. If they signed on to this and their parents allowed them to do it, they deserve to burn when and if that happens.
Oh, definitely. And it's funny to me too that JD was so soft on him on the racism stuff, and uh, a lot of the stuff that the kid said was anti-Indian.
Yeah.
Well, isn't JD's wife and two kids Indian?
Well, exactly. And
Like
isn't that who Elon wants to hire on these special
exactly.
visas?
Well, it nothing adds up, and it speaks. I mean, the fact that Elon's merry band of idiots is a bunch of children, more or less, is really tells me how weak these people are, in that they can't even recruit actual adults to do anything for them. They have to trick all these high school age kids into doing their work for them.
pay them a lot of money that they've never seen before. I know that one of the kids, you got his name, you got his background in work, and the last job he had prior to working for Elon Musk, he was fired because he was passing along company secrets to competitors. And here's a guy you want to trust with our information.
Oh yeah, he's real professional, isn't he?
Yeah. And the same guy has a father that owns some notable popcorn company. And apparently, dad's getting a little blowback on this. It's costing them some money. Wah fucking wah. You
Yeah,
raised this piece of shit. You deserve to have that connection to him.
yeah, exactly. It's just ridiculous.
What do you think? I mean, I think Elon ultimately is exposed. Donald Trump kicks him to the curb. He ends up getting deported. Does that make sense to you? How that might go down?
Oh yeah, Elon's going down. It's just a matter of how long it takes. Because whether Donald Trump does it or the next president does it retroactively, it's going to happen either way. What I would like to see happen is instead of him being deported, I'd like to see his assets seized by the government and used to pay off all the debt that he created. And then I'd like to see him being thrown in prison because I mean, if he gets deported, he'll just do the same thing from somewhere else.
First thing they should do is cancel all contracts he has with the U.S. government. He has more contracts with the U.S. government than almost anybody. I mean, he is the largest recipient of government welfare in the history of this country. And if nothing else, they should seize his properties, seize his money, and cancel all his contracts. And guess what? Mr. $400 billion goes down to zip in about a week if they do
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah. And keep in mind too that he himself is taking so much government buyouts or government subsidy stuff, and he, the richest man on earth, is telling veterans, disabled veterans, that they shouldn't get the health care they need. He's telling he's telling some old lady that can't work that she should have to go back to work because she doesn't deserve that money that from Social Security.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are worried about Social Security, Medicare, and the veterans' benefits and that sort of stuff. And I find it hard to imagine that anybody would have the stupidity and the balls to touch those things. I mean,
Yeah.
that would start an all out revolution in this country. It wouldn't even be about Republicans and Democrats. There might be some stupid ones that just don't know any better, but the vast majority of the people count on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and veterans benefits. That there is going to be literally a revolution if they were to try something like that.
Oh yeah. If you want to see pitchforks come out, you
Yeah,
strike down the VA stuff, especially.
yeah,
That
absolutely.
that would be just absolutely asinine to do that. And they've been trying to do it since the Reagan administration, and they get almost there and then they back off because they know the public would react.
So the question is, why would they do that? And it goes back to what I've said about Donald Trump. He's very performative. Um, you have to say we're going to cut Social Security and Medicare just to appease the wealthy people who want that done. They did the
Yeah.
same thing with Roe v. Wade to keep the evangelicals happy. Yeah, we're going to get rid of Roe v. Wade. We're going to get rid of Roe v. Wade. And then they were the dog that caught the bus. They actually got rid of it. That cost them a lot of money and a lot of clout because they campaigned and fundraised on overturning Roe v. Wade. Now they've done it. They've lost all that income and clout.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, that goes back to another thing that Ed talked about too on his last episode when he said that what they want to do is decrease revenue so much that the government can't function the way it's supposed to. So at that point, they can have an excuse to strike down Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and the Affordable Care Act. my question is that going to work? Because the public is going to see right through that, or at least most of them. And if the public doesn't buy it, then how is that going to work?
The first month that Social Security representative or Social Security recipients don't get a check or get less of a check than they expect, that's when the shit storm starts. Because it won't
Exactly.
just be the people getting Social Security, it'll be the kids that are trying to, protect their parents. It will be from top to bottom, absolute chaos going against the Republicans as opposed to what they're doing.
Yeah. And that's what I want to know is like, yeah, they want to get rid of it, but they don't think as to how they're going to, what happens after that? Because they're not going to have public approval on their side anymore.
No, and the thing about it is we're into this 3 weeks with Donald Trump and this new House of Representatives, and there's a lot of tearing down, there's a lot of destruction, there's a lot of chaos. There hasn't been one bill, not one bill passed in the House of Representatives, or even really brought up. They're talking about, lowering the price of gas, lowering the price of eggs. Just the opposite is happening. And no bill has been passed in the House to that effect. You would hope the
Yeah.
Republicans would recognize that, but I'm not so sure they do.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird for sure. And it harkens back to the fact too that the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives is so divided that they can't even pass their own bill.
Right, exactly. That's the interesting thing that's coming up in March. They have to come up with a budget, or at the very least, a continuing resolution, or the country shuts down. Donald Trump wants a big bill that has no chance of passing, not even
Oh,
amongst the Republicans. So we're going to get to that point. Last minute, last day, they're going to shut the country down. Now, up to this point, uh, the Democrats worked with them a little bit as long as they got some concessions and they kept the country open. I have a feeling right now the Democrats are saying, fuck yourself, do it yourself. We're not helping. And
yeah.
it'll be interesting if they do that.
Well, and you know, I saw that this morning. I saw that Mike Johnson started complaining to the media that the Democrats are being so hard nosed at him now.
Well, good for
he,
them.
he he was whining that well they're not being helpful at all. They're not even trying to work with us. Da 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 da. Like well, you shouldn't even have to rely on them. If your party, if you were a
Not the
strong
majority.
speaker, if you were a strong speaker of the House, you wouldn't even have that problem because
No.
you wouldn't have to worry about the opposition one bit. But
Well, that's how.
because he's not a good speaker and he has no negotiating skills really. Hakeem Jeffries negotiated that whole spending deal in December. You know, he can't. Mike can't even get his own party together, and so he's just going to push that on the Democrats.
That I knew that he knew he was in trouble back a ways when he said, "Well, I hope we can work together with the Democrats." But like you say, you have the majority. Thin as it may be, you have the majority. If you could just unify your party, you could pass anything you wanted through the House.
Exactly.
But he can't. I mean, history has shown us that the Republicans can't get together on anything. You got the MAGA faction, and you've got the people that think they're normal, but they bow to MAGA. So they just can't come up with an answer. So what do you think happens? Do the Democrats let them twist in the wind then? Let them shut down the country?
I don't know. I'm curious as to what happens there. Because I mean, before there was, uh, before there was this whole thing about they wanted to keep the government open. But now, I mean, with all the crazy crap they're trying to do, I wonder if it's almost better to not, just shut her down.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. They've got two problems. They've got this big bill with all this crazy shit in it. The only way Democrats agree to help out is if they get concessions, and they're going to have to get a lot of fucking concessions in this one with all the craziness. And then Donald Trump is not going to be happy if the Democrats help out, and he's certainly not going to want to give concessions. We may be at the point of two immovable objects coming together at this particular um, point in mid-March regarding this budget. It is going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. And the Democrats are going to have to govern, or the Republicans are going to have to govern at some point, and that's not their strong suit.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting, and there may be some motivation for the Democrats to keep the government open with all these firings going on that they're trying. Would a government shutdown just give Trump the excuse he needs to just up and fire the rest of them?
Yeah, you're probably right. He would try to do that. And I don't know what he hopes to accomplish by firing these people, other than chaos, other than a power grab. But I don't know what he would even do with it if he had it. He does have limitations no matter what. I personally
Yeah,
think Donald Trump is in mortal danger right at this point. I really do. I mean, we saw the assassination attempt prior to the election. Now Donald Trump has pissed off the entire world. I mean, he comes out and says, I want to take Gaza and own it, have it owned by the United States, level it, move everybody out of their homes, and turn it into a fucking golf course. Now, when he said that, it sounded like Donald Trump was coming out of his ass with something. And people, no doubt, came to him and said, yeah, that's fucking stupid, Donnie. Don't say that. And Donnie reacted just as Donnie would react when somebody says, don't do something or you're wrong. He just does it again.
yeah,
And in a true social post, he did it again. We're going to own it. We're going to fix it. We're going to stabilize it. We're going to make it beautiful. And we're going to displace all these people. I got to tell you, there aren't any, I don't know that there are many Democrats crazy enough to try something. But over in the Middle East, where you just piss people off, you could be in a scary situation.
very much so. And we know that what Iran's been after him for years
Yeah,
now. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of worried about the Super Bowl tomorrow.
I'm very worried about that. You know, the Super Bowl, I'm at a point with the Super Bowl. I'm not a big fan of Philadelphia because of how they behave. And I'm just fucking tired of Kansas City. I don't really
Yeah,
care about the Super Bowl. But then, of course, Donald Trump has to show up because he needs attention. And I think that's a very risky proposition. You won't get Donald Trump to not go. But if I was a Secret Service, I would be pushing really hard to just stay home this time. It's not a safe bet.
very definitely, very definitely. I mean, I don't like you say, I don't think a Democrat would do it, but certainly somebody from the Middle East and even possibly a Republican.
More than likely a Republican, especially those Republicans that feel like, you know, the funny thing about the Republicans, they're very short sighted too. They voted for Donald Trump, the rich people, strictly to get those tax breaks, right? And that's
Yeah,
another thing that's coming up yet. They've got to extend those tax breaks, and they're probably going to need the Democrats to help them out, and they ain't going to help them out.
yeah,
Um, so there's got to be some wealthy people out there or powerful people out there not feeling Donald Trump so much. They might not get the tax break, and that's really the only reason they liked him. And he's fucking everything else up. The thing is not only is he hurting the people in this country, it's also going to impact the major corporations in this country that supported him. There's going to be a lot of fucking people mad at this guy. CIA, he wants to get rid of the whole CIA. You got a bunch of people specially trained to do shit like that. And you're going to put them out on the streets and piss them off? That makes no fucking sense.
that's what I thought. It's like I would think the CIA would be the last group of people you want to irritate. I mean,
I would
they're
think so.
aren't there people in the CIA that are trying to be uh creative?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly. I don't know that he'll be able to pull that off. I think they may be able to stop him before he does that. And over and above the danger it might put Donald Trump in, the danger it puts us in. I mean, the FBI, the CIA, they're there to keep us protected from terrorists, foreign and domestic. If we have any less protection than we have now, that just opens us up for all kinds of attacks by countries that don't fucking like us in the first place.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's worrying. And I saw the other day that there was a lawsuit filed by there were 9 FBI agents that were on in the lawsuit, but it was in a not like in the writing, it was from an anonymous number of FBI agents. They were suing the Trump administration over this firing deal, and we don't know. And from what I've read, we don't know how many of them there are in this lawsuit. So it very well could be most, if not all, of the organizations suing this guy.
I think the suit, I mean, there was lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. He had to know that was coming. How detrimental does that slow him down at all? Does that give him pause, do you think? Or does he just not care?
I don't think he cares. As far I think it will slow down the actions themselves, but Donald Trump,
Yeah.
I don't think he really cares at all what happens. I think I think his goal is to overload the courts and make it so the courts can't handle what's going on because, I mean, traditionally they move very, very slowly. I mean, all these blocks and stuff like that they're putting up, typically they would block an executive order and then they'd say, okay, we'll have the hearing in 3 months. These guys now, the judges are saying, okay, I'm blocking this move. The hearing is in 4 days. So now I think the courts get the picture now and they're moving fast on it to be able to keep up with it, which is I think the courts are doing a really good job mostly.
The thing about Donald Trump is he's crazy, he's chaotic, he's troublesome, but he's so fucking unserious. I mean, the stuff he does, some of the stuff he does is silly. Now, in keeping with trying to bring the cost of eggs down, trying to bring the cost of energy down to half of what it is, trying to bring inflation down, Donald Trump came up with a new tact. I don't know if you heard about this one. He's deciding that he's going to fire the entire board for the Kennedy Center and that he was going to install himself as the chairperson for the Kennedy Center. And he claims it was because they run too many drag shows there, which I haven't heard of any drag shows in there. But even if they did, so what? But Donald Trump wants to run the Kennedy Center, and it doesn't sound like he really has any standing to do that. But why are we even fucking talking about this, for Christ's sake?
I don't get it. And when you talk about grace and class and culture, Donald Trump is, I think, the last person I would think of to run something that revolves
Yeah,
around culture. So
he's not the classist guy.
I wonder how the people involved with the Kennedy Center are going to react to this.
Yeah, yeah, they aren't reacting well to it, and I think the people that support them probably aren't going to react very well either. But I can imagine Donald Trump wanting to redecorate, in
Oh
his
yeah,
own style. We'll redecorate it postmodern pimp and have gold toilets and velvet on the walls, for God's sake. And no doubt he's got some great ideas for the kind of entertainment that would be at the Kennedy Center. Probably not plays, probably not ballets. We might get some mud wrestling. We might get a bunch of Kid Rock shows at the Kennedy Center.
well there you
So
go. Hulk
Donald
Hogan
Trump's
might
got,
stop in.
yeah, Hulk Hogan might stop in. Uh, uh, Donald Trump's got class coming out his ass.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The they're not going to be real pleased about it. I can tell you that.
It's, I mean, the thing is, it's just silly. It's hard to take seriously. And Donald Trump has grasped onto this transgender thing so much. He's so scared of transgender folks. When transgender folks don't really make up much of society, they're
Like
important.
one or maybe 2% of the population or something. It's real small.
Well, somebody made an interesting comparison, and they were talking about collegiate sports and transgender in collegiate sports. And they explained that there are 5,000 athletes in collegiate sports. And of those 5,000, there are like 10 transgender athletes. And the thing that they said is what's interesting about that, with only 10 transgender athletes in collegiate sports, that's still less people than the people who have sexual offenses in the Trump administration. There's more than 10 in the Trump
That
administration that are sexual predators.
well, I mean, that was a prerequisite to even be able to get in the circle there, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it's
It kind of seems like it.
you either have to be a sexual abuser or a Nazi, I guess.
Yeah, no shit. Or a combination. If you're a Nazi and a sexual predator, you're getting a cabinet spot. You're
Oh,
not going to get
definitely.
a regular. Yeah, it's funny how Donald Trump has grasped that. Um, he probably has always had that mindset. He just nobody really listened to him seriously. Um, how long do you think it goes before things settle down? I mean, this chaotic mess can only go so long. Eventually, they have to do something. Do you think we got a couple more weeks of this shit or what?
Yeah, probably a couple more weeks, and then we'll get on to the funding bill stuff. And you know, there's always a at when a new administration comes in, there's always a I'd say probably for the first month, maybe 2 months, where they're trying to get cabinet positions filled. They're doing all their executive orders and laying out kind of how they want to run things. And then, so the legislature really doesn't have that big of a role in the beginning moments of an administration. And then when it's time to get down to business, that's when the story starts to change and the tone, it kind of changes a little bit. So I expect when they start trying to work on legislation, you know, I think it'll calm down to a point, and it's easy to be overwhelmed right now with all the bad stuff they're doing and trying to do and all that. But you have to understand, it's the only thing we're hearing about right now is all the bad, crazy stuff they're doing because we haven't had a chance to fight back against it yet. The litigation hasn't really started. So when the litigation is going, we know how it's going to go. It's not going to go in their favor. So there's no winning for us going on right now because there's no winning to be had.
And I think that one of the problems I have with some Democrats is because I'll hear it from them all the time, and I admonish them, and they get back. I piss my wife off every day, so this ain't fucking anything new to me. But Donald Trump says something, we're going to do this, or Elon says we're going to do that, or this is going to happen. People are under the assumption that just because Donald Trump said it, it's a foregone conclusion it's going to happen. When all the things he's said since he's taken office, none of them have really gone through, other than Elon breaking into departments. But he's failed at every turn. Pretty much what I've said before. He's incompetent. He can say whatever he wants, but he isn't good at accomplishing goals.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And when it comes to, with the few things that have started to be litigated, the 14th Amendment thing, the birthright citizenship,
Right.
like, yeah, it's a crazy, egregious, wackadoo executive order, but in no way does it hold up in a courtroom. And we've already had two federal judges, both appointed by Ronald Reagan, by the way, have shot it down so far.
Because it's just absolutely silly. Not even a Republican judge can, and they think that well they'll just bring it up to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court will hand it over to Donald Trump. I don't think that's the case either. I mean, there's just certain things that with the immunity thing, they try to find loopholes and all this sort of thing. But there's some
Yeah,
things that are directly opposite of the Constitution that any judge would look foolish trying to overturn it, like the birthright citizenship. Every time that goes to court, they go, Jesus Christ, well, this is fucking stupid. They
exactly.
admonish him for it.
Well, and what Donald Trump wants the Supreme Court to do is they're not necessarily in his pocket when it comes to stuff that directly is talked about in the Constitution. What they're there for is for stuff that requires a different interpretation of what's in the Constitution.
Right.
So when it comes to birthright citizenship, it is laid out explicitly word for word in the amendment. Whereas, like if you take abortion, abortion itself was not really mentioned in the Constitution. That yes, this is a right. It was an interpretation of of an amendment that would, in theory, allow for that to be constitutional. Well, now you have a different set of judges that could interpret it differently. So I think that's really what they're going for here. But I don't think, especially with the 14th Amendment thing, I really don't think they're going to get it.
People misunderstand that about Roe v. Wade. That was part and parcel to the Privacy Act, and that's why Roe v. Wade worked. And
Yeah,
like you say, the Supreme Court interpreted it differently. You know, a lot of them will say, well, it's not explicitly in the Constitution, so it's not a thing. Uh, what's funny is in the Second Amendment, it doesn't explicitly say that any fucking knucklehead can have a gun either, but they
yeah,
interpret that. Well, this word means this. This is what Donald Trump does, and sometimes the Supreme Court look for little loopholes to try to cover their ass to make a bad judgment. Some
yeah,
some deny some deniability uh, if they make the bad choice. Well, it said this, so it's got to be that. And most of the stuff that Donald Trump is dealing with now is so explicit. It's just stupid to even bring it up, and this is why judges are getting pissed off.
exactly. Yeah, I mean it's what he wants to do is he wants to mess with the interpretation of like, well, it says this, but it's not phrased in exactly the right way that would make it so this isn't legal. And so that's what they're looking for. They're not
Trump does that every time with every.
they're not looking to overturn specifically an amendment in the Constitution. They're looking for some way to pervert it that would suit their needs.
And I get people writing into the podcast here, and they will like Z-Man did, and we had a little back and forth. I kind of admonished him, and now he sent me an email we'll talk about later. But now maybe this wasn't Z-Man, it was something else. But some guy says, you say that he won't run for re-election in 2028, but I got a surprise for you. It's in the works in the House of Representatives. Bitch, you can write a bill for anything. You could write a bill for anything. That doesn't override the Constitution. First of all, it would never pass. Second of all, Donald Trump won't survive till 2028. So it's not really a thing. The whole idea that people are fearful that he'll run again for a third term and oh my God, what would happen? We got bigger issues to fucking worry about, and that ain't one to worry about at this point.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling people right now. You know, everybody's, you know, they are not in any way, shape, or form going to be able to change the Constitution. They will not get an amendment through. They can't even get a simple majority in the House of Representatives on anything. They can't even pass a spending bill. They're not going to pass a constitutional amendment that would require something like 70 or 80 Democrats to side with them. And they're not, and they're even if they do by some miracle pass it through Congress, 38 there are not 38 states that are going to be on board with it.
Absolutely silly. And the impression is, well, Donald Trump said it and he gets away with everything, so he'll just do it. Even if he could try to get away with something, you can't logistically do that. The
Well, exactly.
Constitution is pretty clear.
Yeah. And you can't do something in public office that directly goes against how the government is framed, and half of Project 2025 would need legislation, and they're not going to pass that because it's just blatantly illegal. And would get that legislation, if it passed Congress, would get struck down in the court system. And then they're not going to get any amendments through either. And another thing to talk about here too with amendments is time. You know, with the 28th Amendment that Biden tried to get ratified, it took over 50 years for all the states to ratify it. So even if they did pass it and propose it to the states, it may not happen for another 100 years.
Exactly right. And then the amendment you're talking about is the ERA,
Yeah,
Equal Rights Amendment. Whoa, that's fucking that's controversial. Equal Rights Amendment? Who wants to vote for that? You know, the reason it didn't pass was some technicalities and stuff. But I
yeah,
remember the fight for the Equal Rights Amendment when I was a teenager. And you
yeah,
thought Equal Rights Amendment, how hard could that be? But like you say, 50 years later, here we sit.
yeah. I just don't see it. I really don't.
And the time, put it this way, in the time that they were trying to get ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, I became an adult. I started drinking. I was maybe not adult when I started drinking, but I quit drinking while I was adult. I got married. I had a career. I had kids, and now I have grandkids. And now allegedly there's supposed to be something happening where it would be approved. Donald Trump will fuck it up one way or another. That's what people have to understand. The
Yeah,
wheels move slowly in Washington D.C. The idea that Donald Trump would run for a third term. I mean, I said this to somebody, to a Republican. I said, so if Donald Trump can run for a third term, then can Barack Obama run against him in 2028? And this is their explanation. No, he can't. Well, if Donald Trump could run for 3 terms, why can't Barack Obama? Oh, see, it's special because if you were the president, then you lost, and then you won again. If there was a split between your terms, you actually get two con- uh, consecutive terms. So that means if you were only in for 1 term, then you have a chance for 2 new consecutive terms, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's not even
yeah.
a smart argument. It's silly, but that's the arguments they're taking to court, and that's why they're getting laughed at.
It's just simply not going to happen. It there's no way. And it's all for show. It's all for look, almighty orange Jesus, we're trying. We love you. We're trying. And
Exactly. That's it. It's performative.
there's nothing to it. As with most of what they're doing. None
Absolutely.
of
And
it's
so all you people who write to me worried about this, stop it. Fucking stop it. Let's worry about the eminent things that are the problem and
yeah.
stop that shit. Let's not worry about shit we don't need to worry about. Well, John, we're going to wrap things up. John is the Gen Z guest who's also a farmer down in Illinois. I want to thank you for coming on and spending some time. It's always good to have you on the lives. You've been on a few of those, and
Yeah.
you're more than welcome to come back here anytime. It's nice to talk to somebody um, who is intelligent, articulate, and young at the same time. That's sometimes a rare combination.
Well, thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
All right. We were talking to John. He's from Illinois, farmer, Gen Z. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. Hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.